Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. Today we'll continue our lab, the DC Comics. This is the 5th video. We have been discussing in the previous 4 videos the scenario as follows. Just a minute. Here we were discussing that in the DC Comics universe they had a new headquarters and Superman was assigned to be the project manager to construct a new headquarters for the DC Comics characters, villains and heroes. So Superman asked his Batman friend to be responsible for the IT technology role and to create a domain called DC domain.local and to deploy a number of PCs for all of the members of the DC Comics Active Directory. Okay, so we have Batman has made his plan. Okay, we have 215 Active Directory users and we have 53 computer objects and 53 robots, and we need to deploy 53 PCs with Windows and Office and all of the essential programs. Okay, so we have a scenario as follows. We will make 2 domain controllers, DC DC01 and DC DC02. This is the first domain controller, a second domain controller, and in every domain controller we have 2 network cards and there is a teaming option between them for network redundancy. So if one of the network cards fail, the other will work and your network connection will not be down. So in our lab this time we are using our hypervisor as the Hyper-V. In the previous lab, the Transformers lab, we had been working with the VM Workstation Pro. So this lab we work with the Hyper-V. We have shown in the previous videos how to install the Hyper-V and how to begin working with it. For example, here is this is my laptop. This is my laptop, or this is the physical machine, and we'll call it a host. As soon as I install the Hyper-V, I asked him to create a virtual switch, and this is called Hyper-V internal switch, and then I will put all of my virtual machines on this hyper switch, and also I will make a virtual network card for my host so I can be able to communicate with all of the virtual machines. So I make this virtual card to be able as a host to communicate with the guest, which is the virtual machines. We have here created a virtual machine, DC01. We have give it 10.0.1.20 and I give my virtual network adapter 10.0.1.100 so I can be able to communicate with this domain controller on all of the virtual machines attached to this virtual switch. Okay, so we have done in the previous lab, we have installed Hyper-V, we have created a virtual switch, especially internal virtual switch, which is responsible, or which is main function to make all virtual machines communicate with each other and to be able to communicate with the host, or for the virtual machines which is called guest to communicate with the host. We have created a virtual machine and then we have renamed it and we have done some configuration to it, and then we have installed the Active Directory domain services, and then we have promote the server to domain controller, and then we have began doing some configuration. We have configured the DNS reverse zone, and the main function of DNS is to DNS reverse zone is to return, if you give the DNS the IP of the server or the virtual machine, it will return the name. Basically the DNS, if you give him the name, he will return or give you the IP address. Okay, but for the reverse it's the opposite. If you give him the IP address, he will give you the name. So we have created domain controller and then we have installed Active Directory on it and promote the server to domain controller, and then we begin configuring a lot of things. First of all, we have created, or we have made something called after installing or configuring reverse DNS zone, we have created something called group policy central location, and this is a central location to store all group policy templates to eliminate the need for admins to load and open group policy templates files on systems used to manage group policy. Okay, here is the example. As I said before, if we have different domain controllers with different operating system, so that the GPOs will not be the same. Okay, so we will put here, we have the latest domain controller with or the latest domain controller that have the latest operating system and the newest or the latest group policies. So we'll take a copy of its group policy, and then we put it in the folder sysvol, okay, and this will be the central location for all of the other secondary domain controllers to get their group policy from. Okay, as I said before, because most of these operating systems have different GPOs, okay, they are not the same, so okay, so will be a conflict and a lot of mess in the domain. So it is better to have one place which contains the latest group policy, tamam, so everyone can get their group policy from. And here is we can see that it says ensure all admins have using the same group policy templates, load the same templates from any computer, make easier to manage and update templates files having only one location to update, reduce templates files in the sysvol, and reduce replication between domain controllers. So we know that if we have one domain controller and additional domain controllers, there is a replication that will be done, so all of these domain controllers will have the same configuration of the first domain controller. So if you have your group policy in a central location, this will decrease a little bit the replication of the group policies to the other additional domain controllers, because they will not they don't need to have a copy of it, because they all will get it from a central location. You don't have to have a copy of the group policy in each server, because they can get it from a central location. So this will decrease the traffic. So as I said before, we have created a domain controller, we have configured DNS and DNS reverse zone, we have made group policy central location, and we have put in this central location all of the group policy templates we need to configure or to control Firefox, Google Chrome, and a lot of things. Okay, and then after that we began creating our Active Directory users and computers and groups. All of this are done through scripts. Okay, this is the script, and the script goes to an Excel sheet that contains the data that need to be created. For example, here this script will go to an Excel sheet that contains the security groups, and it will create it. And this is another one, a script that will contain or will go to an Excel sheet that contains all the organizational structures, and then he will go to it and create the organizational structures. And the same goes for the computers and for the users and for the computers or servers. Okay, one for the servers and one for the computers. So we have created the Active Directory with the computers and everything. We have created the DNS, reverse and normal DNS, and we have created the central group policy location and copied the different templates for Firefox and Google Chrome in this central location, so we can be able to configure different group policies. Okay, so, and we have done another thing, something we call a login script. We have created a login script. When the user logs into domain, he will have certain operations or certain things to be applied to him. He will have English and Arabic installed on his PC. We will have to hide the Cortana, and then we will have his Windows options to be in a certain setting, and then we have a program called idle logoff that will log off the user after 3000 seconds. Okay, and had we said how we can do this process, we have the Active Directory user properties, and in the field of login script we will add mycomputer.bat here, where we type it, and then this mycomputer.bat, it should be at sysvol scripts. Okay, and this folder as a whole is shared, and the users have access to this shared folder, the scripts folder, and they have rights to run this program or this script. And the scripts have some lines in it. It will go to run certain registry keys which is in another folder which is called backgrounds. Okay, so we will also share this folder so the users can be able to access it to implement the script. And not only the folder we will share it and give users access to the folder and to the files in it, so you have rights to run the files in the folder and to have permissions to access the folder after sharing it, of course, because the first thing to do is to share the folder and then give rights for the users to the folder and to the files in the folder. Okay, so here the users have access to the file and have access to the file and have rights to run it, including, and the users have right on the folder and rights on the file, and they can able to run it after it is shared, of course. And also the same here, the users, we will share the folder, and then we will give rights for the users to access these files and access these folders. So at the end the user logs in, and then all of this will be implemented on him. So the last, or we stopped at the previous video on we have done all of this process. We need to test it and see how this will be working. Okay, so we have done a lot of things. We have created a domain controller, and we have done all of the group policies, done all of the users and computers and groups, and we have done a login script. So in this video we will begin testing this login script, and then we'll begin create the group policy objects to see how we can control the Windows setting for the different workstations and servers in the domain. So let's begin. I think I am here. Let's go there. Here open the VM Workstation Pro, and then we will right click and then connect, and then we will power on the virtual machine. And also, if you need to know more, please refer to my previous 4 videos. Okay, this is a general idea of what we are doing now. So here we have powered on the virtual machine. Okay, and then we will make this icon Control Alt Delete to get the login screen. I said before also in the scenario of the lab that we will deploy 53 PCs. Okay, in a process called the Eurotouch installation, Batman only needs to power on the 53 PCs, and then the PCs doesn't have any operating system on it. It will go and install the Windows and the Office and all of the necessary programs, and the PC will be given a name and join the domain. All of this will be done in a process called Zero Touch installation. We will do this through using Windows Deployment Server and Microsoft Deployment Tool database and some scripts. Okay, so this is also to take note. So now we will log into the domain. Here we will use my I have an Active Directory user account, and I have attached the mycomputer.bat. This is the login script. Here we see that in this I don't think this is the one. Okay, just a minute. This is the this is not that. Here I have created an Active Directory user. In my user Active Directory properties, I have attached my user to the login script mycomputer.bat. So I will log in with my Active Directory user and see if the script will be implemented. It's care of 1. So now I think it will take a little bit of time. So now it is preparing or creating the Windows profile. I think we can make it a little bit faster. It's creating the profile. So now, just a minute. So now as we see here that this command prompt, the one that is minimized, this is a window or a command prompt that will it is related to our mycomputer.bat script. So he is implementing the script. As we see here, for the first thing to know if our mycomputer.bat is successful or not is first my computer or this PC appeared on my desktop, and it's named according to my computer name DC01. The first 3 lines in my computer.bat does this operation. I told him to make this PC appears on my desktop for every user that logs in, and to rename this PC to the name of the computer. So this computer is named DC01. So that means that our script first part is implemented successfully. So now we need to make sure that also our script contains something that it need to change the time zone to Cairo zone, and to add English and Arabic, and to hide the search icon. Okay, here first of all, if you remember from my previous video, we have created a custom console in the beginning. In this custom console we have put all of the consoles we need to work with this domain controller. For example, if you need to configure the Active Directory users and computers, so you need to open the Active Directory users and computers console, and if you need to open the DNS, you need also to open DNS console separately, and if you need to configure the Wins, also you need to open the Wins console separately. So to save time and to put all of them in one place, so we have created a custom console and put all of these consoles in it. Okay, so we have done this, and we have put this sorry for a moment because I have my laptop power. So here, as we remember that I have already put this console in the administrator. As I said before, when you install Windows for the first time, server or normal workstation, a Windows server system or normal operating system for a workstation, you have a user called administrator by default. So we are using this administrator for now. So I have put my custom console in this administrator. Okay, so as I said before, as a best practice, we need to give this administrator a password, because it is by default this user doesn't have a password, and we need to rename it from administrator to any other name, and then to disable it and give any user. For example, I give Karim Raouf all of the administrative rights for this administrator. Okay, so I can do anything because I have the rights of this administrator. This administrator have the full rights on the Windows operating system. So I will go to administrator. This is the folder that contains the profile or the Windows profile of the administrator, and I will go to the desktop icon, so desktop folder, so I can get my custom console and put it here on my desktop here. Here we can see that there is a little notification appearing saying that there is a registry that need to be run. Okay, so also this is another sign that our my computer.bat is working successfully, because I have 5 registry keys that he needs to run. So if a notification is here saying that I need to run a certain registry key, then that means that it have read the script successfully, and it went and it has went to the location that contains the registry keys and begin to running them one by one. Okay, this is the second registry key, and then we have the third registry key. We have about 4 registry keys. Okay, so all of them are being implemented. So here I will go to the administrator and then go to the desktop, so I can get my custom console. So I don't need to create another custom console again. I have it already done before, but it is on another user's profile. So I will go to the location where Windows saves all of this Windows profiles, which is in C users, and then I will go to administrator and go to the desktop and get my custom console. Here we can see that server managers appears automatically when you log in for the first time, I go to the manage and then server manager properties and tell him not to start the server manager automatically. We will have a group policy and tell him to disable or don't make the server manager opens automatically when you log in for the first time. Here we can see that user administrator desktop, and this is my console. Copy and then paste. So now we have our console, and then we can see that, for example, here we said that my computer.bat will add languages English and Arabic, and it will change the time zone to Egypt or to Cairo local zone. Okay, we see here that this is not implemented yet, but if you go to the performance options, here we can see that this is the one I have told him in my script to do this. So he have implemented the first 3 lines, and then he has implemented the performance register key, but still we didn't he didn't add the English and Arabic and change the time zone to Egypt. So we will restart again, because I have discovered that I need to restart it twice. Okay, so or I need to log in twice so I can implement the login script successfully. So now we will log in back. Have full screen, and then we will log in with my user. Now I will not use the administrator again. I will not use it. I will use my Active Directory user account. In the previous video we have given DC_IT, which is the IT Active Directory security group, all of the administrators rights or all of the privileges that was assigned for the local administrator on this server. So now we can close. Here we can see that the registry key is implemented again. The 5 registry keys will be implemented again. So as I said before, I have given my DC_IT all of the local administrator privileges by putting my group or Active Directory DC_IT security group in the administrators group on this server. Okay, so here as we can see that now we have English and Arabic, and we have our time zone to Egypt. Okay, change it to Egypt, and we have our PC appearing and with its name. Change it from this PC to the computer name, and we have the performance setting, and we can here have a notice that our research our search icon, which is about a magnifier, it had disappeared from the taskbar. So now our login script is implemented successfully. Okay, so now we will go to the second thing, is when we need to create group policies. Okay, so here we have in our folders, I have some ready-made, or I have already made some group policies. I will just import them to the group policy management console, and then we'll begin working with it directly. But I have a graph. I will show you every group policy and what it will do. But first of all, we'll open our DC console. First of all, we will go and copy the ready-made group policy. I have made about 6 group policies. All of them are ready and configured. I will just import them to the group policy management console, and then I will begin implementing them on my different computers and users and groups. Okay, it's called, okay, I have it in a place. It's called Marvel GPO. This is a group policy that I have used in the Marvel the Marvel lab. This is a lab I will also introduce to you after I finish the DC Comics lab. I have another lab which called the Marvel lab, and I have some group policies from them. This is ready-made group policies. I will just import them to the group policy management console, and then I will begin implementing them to users and groups, or linking them to organizational units which contains users and groups. So let's see how we will implement these group policies. Here I have, if you remember in my previous lab, if you want to copy something from your host, your guest, or from your laptop, or from physical machine to your virtual machine, you need to have a folder shared between them. Okay, my virtual machine and my lab are on the same network, but this is not enough, and they are on the same switch, but this also is not enough. We need to share a folder, and then I give both of them access. I have to share a folder and give my laptop access on this folder. Okay, so I can be able to copy something from my laptop to the virtual machine, or from my physical machine to my virtual machine. And then I just opened this share folder between my virtual machine and my laptop. He asked me for a password on my virtual machine, which is the domain. This is my domain admin account or active user account. I will give him the password, and then I can access the share on my virtual machine. I said before, this is not a problem with the VM Workstation Pro. You can tell him, when you configure the virtual machine, to have a ready-made mapping drive between your virtual machine and your physical machine. This is in the beginning of configuring or creating the virtual machine, but in the Hyper-V you need to do it in this indirect way. Here we have copied the group policies that we will use, or that we will import to our group policy management console. So here we will go and open our group policy management, and then we will create 5 or 6 blank group policies, and then we will import each group policy I have to every one of these blank policies. We will see that in a moment. Here I will have, this is here DC domain, and then group policy management. Here we can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This 7th policy, it's already there, it's created by default, it is in the active directory. So I will create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 group policies with the same name, and then I will import each group policy to its respective group policy object. For example, I will make a blank group policy object, and I will name it Advanced Users Group Policy, and then I will import my group policy to this blank group policy, and the same will be done. So let's see how we can do this. Okay, here we will create, for example, the first thing, we will make a blank group policy, and we will call it Advanced Users Group Policy. Okay, and then I will tell him to import a group policy to this blank group policy with the same name. So just hold for a moment. Here I tell him right click and new, and tell him to have advanced group policy. We will make here 6 group policies. Okay, we'll make another. I'm going to show you all what the meaning of, or what each group policy will do, but just first of all bear with me. We need to create, this is the first, this is a blank. Okay, here this is a blank group policy, doesn't contain any configuration. We have named it Advanced Users Group Policy, and then we will go to the folder that contains the ready-made group policies and import the advanced group policy to this Advanced Users Group Policy, which is blank. Okay, we will see that in a moment. So we'll create 6 group policies. Okay, limited, and then we have domain, default to domain policy. It is already created in the active directory. It's created by default, so you don't need to create it again. This is default users. All of these group policy objects are blank. It doesn't contain any configuration. After that, we will right click one by one and tell him to import a group policy to it, to import a group policy configuration to it. Okay, here we can see that we have created new and then the group policy name, and then we have the last one. We have now 6 group policies. All of them are blank without configuration, and then we will right click every one of them and import certain group policy configurations to each one of them. Okay, so now here we have done this. We will right click the first one. Okay, right click and import setting. Okay, and then we will show him, or we'll tell him where is the group policies are, or where are the group policies that we need to import. We will go to DC. Okay, and then we will choose D data, and then guest share, and then DC domain. Okay, and then DC domain again, and then Marvel domain GP. Okay, this is the location of all of the group policies we need to import, and here we can see that. Just a minute. Here we can see that it gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 group policies, and tells me which group policy we need to import. So we will import advanced users group policy to advanced users group policy, and then we will import classic shell policy admin to classic shell policy admin, and then one by one every name to its correspondence or to its correspondent name. Okay, group advanced group policy, we will import it to advanced users group policy. A classic shell group policy admin will import it to classic shell group policy admin. Okay, so we'll do this one by one. Next, and finish. Next. Okay, next, and then classic shell admin. I will import classic shell admin, everyone or every group policy to its correspondent blank group policy. Okay, or every configuration to its correspondent blank group policy name. Okay, limited, and then next, and then limited. Okay, and next, and then finish. Okay, and then default domain policy we have already. It is there already. I am not creating it. I will just go and import it, and then we can go like there. So now we will go to default users policy. Next, and then finish, and then mapping policy. So if you give me a second, I will show you all every group policy and what it will do. Okay, so now we have all of our group policies created, and their configuration is imported from our ready-made group policies. So they are now ready. We just need to link them to their respective organizational units. Okay, or to the place which it will be implemented. Okay, so we'll see that in a moment, but just please, I will show you a graph and I'll show you which group policy will be implemented to which organizational unit. Okay. Okay, so I will do something here. I will show you all a small graph about the group policy. Okay, let's have a look. Here, as we can see that, can go a little bit. This is our organizational unit structure. We have our DCSH. This is the first organizational unit, and under it there is admins. This is the organizational unit that contains all of my IT personnel. Okay, this is users, contain user objects, and then there is the terminals. This our organizational unit that contains the workstations of the domain. Okay, is contained here, and the robots also. This is another organizational unit that contains computers also, workstations of the domain. And then security groups. This is the organizational unit that contains the Active Directory groups. Okay, or security groups, it is there. And then we have another organizational unit that contains the servers, okay, it will contain it. And then the last one, it is the users, that contains the Active Directory users, okay. So every organizational unit, we will have certain group policies applied to them. First of all, I can tell you all that there is something called default domain policy. This default domain policy will be applied to all of our organizational units, for admins, for terminals, for robots, for security groups, for servers, for all users, okay. What is the default domain policy, or what does it mean? Okay, the default domain policy will contain some setting like password policy, welcome message, and administrator change. For example, in the default domain policy, you can define the password setting for your domain. For example, if you need your password to be 7 characters, if you need it to be complex, if you need it to expire after how many days, the password, the maximum password age, for how much time this password should work, and this is the maximum password age, and the minimum password age, so how much it will work, and how much time you need to make it work until you change it. For example, if I have set a password and then I want to make another one, because for example, I have a password set and then I change my mind, I want to make another password, so I will not be able to change the password unless it has been past 2 days. So this is called minimum password age. And as for the maximum password age, is the maximum password age, it is the time that the password should reach it, then it should be changed, okay. So this is the password policy. All of this should be or it is contained in the default domain policy, okay. So the password policy setting, the password age, the minimum password age, some things related to the account lock. For example, if your user for example, logged into the domain or typed his Active Directory user password for a number of times incorrect, so after how much incorrect trials the account should be locked. All of this also should be configured in the default domain policy, okay. And also there is something called welcome message. If, for example, if you restart your PC and then you try to log in for the first time with your Active Directory user account to a workstation, you have something like a welcome screen saying welcome, this is the domain, so please be confirmed, or please be advised that this PC contains confidential data. This is something called welcome screen. And also you can tell him in this default domain policy, and this we will tell him to change the administrator account, rename it to another name, and then disable it. We can do this from the default domain policy. So as I said before, the default domain policy will be applied to all of our organizational units, okay. So for example, as we see here, we can discuss it one by one. The admins organizational unit contains all of my IT personnel. Here the default domain policy will be applied to them. Mapping policy, okay. What is a mapping policy? Mapping policy, it is department shares mapping letters policy. What I mean, for example, in the upcoming videos we will have for each department a share, and this share will be mapped to a drive. For example, I need the IT, when the IT personnel logs in with their Active Directory user account, Active Directory user account, he will see his share. We will make a share for the IT, and this share should appear as a mapped drive in his computer. So this is called mapping policy. We will make a share for every department and a map policy to map this share to a certain letter. This letter differs from a department to another. We will see that in upcoming videos. So we have a default domain policy, a mapping policy, and then classic shell policy admin. What is a classic shell policy admin? I can show you all this. We can see here that this is not the regular start layout, or this is not the start menu of the Windows 10. This is not the regular one, or this is not the default one. I have already installed a software that have changed my Windows 10 start menu to be like Windows 7 start menu, okay. So I have a group policy, okay, that I can control what appears for the user in this start menu. For example, I need, for example, the setting not to appear for him, the movies not to appear for him, or the all programs, some programs to appear for him. For example, I need the PC setting to not to appear for him, something. So I can, through the classic, this is called classic shell. So I have a group policy called classic shell policy admin. This is a group policy that I have configured it. Okay, as I said before, you can control not only the Windows setting through the group policy management. Okay, you can control different things, not only the Windows. You can configure, you can control the Firefox, you can control the Google Chrome, you can control the classic shell, even the program that I am using now. But if you have its group policy object, and then put them in the folder that contains the Windows group policy object as well. So I have already put the classic shell group policy objects in the folder that contains the Windows group policy objects. Okay, so now I have a group policy named classic shell. I can control the classic shell with. So here I have something called classic shell policy admin. Here I have opened everything in the classic shell to appear for me. Okay, so I have default to domain policy, mapping policy, and classic shell policy. Okay, we can see that after that I have something called classic shell limited user. This policy also relates to the program of classic shell. In this or this other policy, I am telling him to limit some access, or limit the access to certain options in this program. Okay, so now I have, let's go there. Here I have my organizational unit admins. We have 3 group policies applied to them. Okay, there is something when you create a group policy, there is 2 parts. Okay, here you have to tell the group policy on which organizational unit you need these group policies to be implemented, and what user or what objects you need them to be implemented on. For example, here I am telling him I need these 3 policies to be implemented to this organizational unit. Okay, and I need it to be applied to users. Okay, authenticated users, which mean any user in the domain that was able to access the Active Directory. I mean, he has a valid username and password, and he have authenticated or he have logged into domain. I need these 3 group policies to be applied to them, but within this organizational unit. So this organizational unit contains only the IT personnel. They are users. Okay, they are authenticated users, and there is a lot of authenticated users. Okay, all of my 215 users are authenticated, but I am limiting these authenticated users to be within this organizational unit. Okay, so in this organizational unit I have my IT personnel. So the group policy have 2 parts: a part where you will apply this to which organization unit you will apply this group policies, and something called security filter, to which type of objects or groups you will apply this group policies. For example, you need these 3 group policies to be applied to this organizational unit. Okay, but you need it to be applied to a certain user or a certain group in this organizational unit. Okay, so this can be done through something called security filter. Anyway, this is the first thing. We need these 3 group policies to be applied to this organizational unit and 2 authenticated users. Okay, and have all my IT personnel in it. Okay, and then the other thing, we have terminals. This is now, these are computers. Okay, this is not authenticated users, because I think there is another thing. Anyway, this contains computers, and there are 3 policies to be applied to them: default to domain policy, mapping policy, I have discussed this before, and WSOS policy. WSOS policy, this is a policy after we install WSOS, which is called Windows Server Update Services. This is a service to be we will put it on our second domain controller. Its function to have a central location that we will download all of our Microsoft Windows updates and then distribute it to all of our workstations and servers. Okay, so we will make a group policy. In this group policy we will put the name of the WSOS server, okay, and some Windows update setting, and then we will push it to all of our workstations. Okay, for example, in this group policy we'll tell them, if you need to get updates for your systems, you need to talk to the second domain controller, and the name of the second domain controller, which will have the WSOS server role on it. And another thing, when you install the updates, you need to download it. Okay, download the updates from WSOS, and then you install it automatically, so you don't need to install it by yourself. And if you didn't install it automatically, or if you didn't it will be downloaded and installed automatically, and it will restart after 15 minutes. So this is called update setting. This is called, in a way, called WSOS policy. So we'll have these three group policies applied to the terminals, okay, this organization that contains the computer, and also to authenticated users, because I think it will not, this doesn't contain users anyway, so authenticated users will not work in this case. And the same for the robots, we will do the same. These three group policies will be applied, okay. And then in the servers, okay, we will have also default domain policy, mapping policy, WSOS policy, okay. And there is something called default domain controller policy. For example, if your organizational unit that contains the servers contains the domain controllers, there is a default group policy created when you install the Active Directory. It's called default domain controller policy. This is also will be applied to your organizational unit, okay. So all of these group policies have a security filter to authenticated users, okay. We will not limit, or will not apply them to a certain group within every organizational unit, okay. So let's go to the last one, which is the most important one. Here we have users, okay, and we have three group policies: classic shell policy limited, advanced users group policy, and default users group policy, okay. Let's first see what is classic shell limited policy. Classic shell program policy setting for normal user. As I said before, here is the classic shell. I need, for example, in this policy, the user not to access the control panel, so I will disable it, and the PC setting, okay, and another thing. So this is limited classic shell policy. The admin classic shell policy, this is more open and contains more features, okay. But for the limited, it's for the normal users, not for the IT. This policy is for the IT personnel, as this is for all of the other users in the domain, okay. So we'll have our classic shell policy limited. It will be applied to the OU, or what is organization unit, what is called users. And we have another thing called advanced users group policy. Advanced users group policy, this is a policy that we will configure to open for certain users the USB and DVD, okay. This is called advanced users group policy. And the opposite default is called default users group policy. We will disable USB and DVD, okay. So here we have a dilemma. Here we have in our organizational unit, we have a lot of users, okay. Some of them I need the DVD and USB to be opened, and some of them I need the DVD and USB to be disabled. So we have two security groups in our Active Directory. One of them is called DC Advanced, and one is called DC Default. So when we apply these two group policies to this organizational unit, we will have a security filter, or we will have a condition saying that this policy should only be applied to advanced users in this organizational unit. So any users in this organizational unit that it is in the DC advanced group, we will apply advanced users group policy to it. And this group policy, if any users in this organizational unit is in the DC default group policy, we will apply to it default users group policy. So this is called a security filter, okay. So this is basically what the organizational units and the group policy structure will work, okay. So we have all of this, okay, and we will begin implementing it. So we can go now and implement it. Here we have already created the group policies. We'll begin linking them to every organizational unit, as we have seen in the graph. We can see, for example, here that the WSOS policy, it is applied to authenticated users, but the location still, it is not attached to any organizational unit. This group policy will be implemented, as we can see in the graph. Just a minute. We can see in the graph that we will apply the WSOS policy to the terminals. We will attach it to organization unit, the terminals, and the robots and the servers, okay. So we'll see that in a moment. Here we'll advance group policies. We will attach it to the users, Okay, we saw this also in the graph. And also we will have the classic shell admin to the admins and the limited to the users. This is also, we have shown it in the graph. And the default users policy also will be applied or will be attached to the users organizational unit. So now we have 3 group policies attached here to the users. You can see here now that we have advanced on the users organization unit. We have advanced users group policy, classic shell limited, and default users group policy. Okay, this will be applied to these users. Okay, and also we will see that this default domain policy will also be applied to them. Okay, but it is in the upper level, but it will be applied because it is applied to all of the domain. Okay, we attach this group policy to all of the domain, so all of this organization unit under this domain, it will be applied. Okay, so now we have the mapping policy. We'll put it to terminals, and okay, we'll put it in all of it will be applied to all of them. And then the WSOS policy, okay, and also for the robots. Okay, okay, terminals. Okay, so now we have attached all of the group policies. I think there is someone or something left. No. Okay, here we will do a little bit of thing. Here we can see that it's advanced users group policy. We need to make a security filter not to authenticated users to be to the group of DC advanced. Okay, if you do this step, you need to have additional step done in the delegation. Okay, you need to add domain computers and give it a read option. Why you do this? This is because of a recent Microsoft group policy update. It says that if you have any group policy and you have a security filter and it is not authenticated users, any other group, you need to go to the delegation and put domain computers and give them read. Okay, this is something said by Microsoft because of a recent update. So any group policy you have in the security filter other than authenticated users, any other group or any other thing, you need to go to delegation and add domain computers and give them read, so this group policy will be implemented. If you will not do this, the group policy will not be implemented. Okay, so take care, because I have this faced in my production environment. So we do this in the advanced users computer group policy and to the default users policy also. We will do this. Okay, because these two should be filtered. I need them to be filtered to certain groups. Okay. Okay, here we can see something. No, we can go back again. No, I can go back because there is something here. No, we can go back again. Okay, and then here we can see that there is, this is what I'm talking about. Group policy required each computer account to have permission to read GPO from a domain controller in order for user group policy setting to be successfully applied. Removing the authenticated users group may prevent processing of user group policies. Please add the domain computers or authenticated users security group with at least read permission. So here he is saying that if you remove authenticated users, okay, you will not be able to and add any other one, because if, for example, if I need to remove authenticated users and filter to a certain group, not to be authenticated users, so you need, here is saying that you need to add domain computers or authenticated user security group. So if I remove authenticated security groups, then I need to add domain computers, one of them. Okay, so this is what I am talking about. You need to make sure to read this carefully. After you remove authenticated users and put the group that you need to go to delegation and add domain computers and get them read. If you leave authenticated users though, so you don't need to go to delegation and do anything. Okay, you leave it as it is. Then we will add the domain computers. Read, and then we will do the same for the default user group policy. So if someone can tell me for the limited, here we have the limited, okay, we can see in the graph, let me show here in the graph, we can see that we have the limited classic shell policy limited, okay. I didn't specify a group, okay, but here in the graph I'm saying that I am linked to default users or to normal users, but no, I need classic shell limited to be applied to all of the users in the organizational unit, advanced users or normal users, okay. So though I didn't do this in the classic shell limited. So I think also we need to go to a little bit further for this. There is something like no, we can go further. There is a notification, I need to see it. Okay. Here we can see that the permission for this GPO and the sysvol are inconsistent with those in the Active Directory. It is recommended that these permissions to be consistent. To change the sysvol permissions to those in the Active Directory, click OK. So I need to click OK. Okay, you need to make this for the default domain controllers policy and for the default domain policy. You need to confirm this. Okay. Okay, here as I said before, the same notification, we will add domain computers. So now we have, and then go to delegation and add domain computers. I have this done in my production environment, and because I have done something like a configuration for the WSOS to test updates before applying them to my whole network, so I discovered it earlier before a disaster could happen. Okay, so here we can see that we have all of our group policies created, their configuration was imported, they were linked to their respective organizational units, and they also were filtered to their respective groups, okay, or security groups or Active Directory security groups. So I think we need to play with these group policies. For example, I need any user, when he logs in for the first time with his Active Directory user account, I need him to see a specific background and lock screen and a screensaver. Okay, so we need to configure this group policy. So where we can do it, we will do it from the default domain policy, which will be applied to all of the users in the domain. We will right click and edit, and then we will go to the location where we can apply, or we can set the background, lock screen and screensaver options. Okay, here we will go to administrative templates, so now I want you to have a look. Here we can see, you remember that in my previous videos I have imported some group policy objects to the Windows folder that contains the Windows group policy objects. Okay, we can see that I have imported Office. This wasn't before. This is not it's not in the group policy by default. You only see the Windows group policies, but here I am imported other group policies. For example, this is for the Office, and some for the Classic Shell, and some for the Firefox. So this is why I have, for example, we have Adobe Reader XI. I have also imported some group policies concerning the Adobe Reader. So there is a lot of group policies templates other than the one for the Windows, or other for the one for controlling the Windows setting. Okay, so this is implemented successfully, and these templates are pulled from the Active Directory Central Group policy location, the one that we have created in the sysvol, and that I have shown you all in my previous videos how to create it and why we need to create it in this way. Okay, here we go to personalize, and we can here go to the force default lock screen. Here we have, you remember I have a share called backgrounds. These backgrounds contains the registry keys that the login script will go and run them from it. In these backgrounds I have also the background that I need every user to see it in the same share in backgrounds. So I'll just change the name of the server. It's DC Marvel. This is another lab, so I will change it to DC01, and this shell folder is already there. I have done it in a previous video, and the lock screen will be lock.jpg. At this, for the lock screen, we need to change the background and the screensaver. Okay, so we'll go to the user. Here this is in the configuration of the computer, or the group policy configuration side. Computer group policy side, computer group policy side. Okay, and this is the users configuration group policy side. Here we will go to the control panel, and we will see here the setting of the background. Here we can see also that there is group policies for all of the Office, here for the Office as a whole, and Word and Visio, and Adobe Reader, Classic Shell, a lot of or different group policies other than the default Windows group policies. Okay, and I'll show you how this was done in previous videos. We'll go to desktop. No, it is in the, I think in the desktop. Okay, here we can see that there is something called desktop wallpaper. This is the one that we will use. Also it's in the backgrounds, and we will tell it to stretch it in the desktop. Okay, we'll change the name. It's also in DC background. So we now change it, the lock screen, the desktop wallpaper, and there is something missing. There is still the screensaver. I think now we will maybe restart the PC, but just a minute. No, here I am. I have the screensaver in another place, so I will go and get it and put it in the folder of backgrounds, so I can be able to implement it. Okay, this is another thing here. Here, as we can see, this is the Classic Shell program. I didn't install it still. As I told before, this is the program that changes the Windows 10 or Windows Server start menu to this Windows 7 like start menu. So I have a group policy for them in my domain controller, but still I didn't put or didn't set up this software on my domain controller yet, so I need to start or need to configure it or to set it up. So I'm just take a copy of the source of this installation files and put it in the share between my PC or my physical laptop and with my virtual machine or with my guest and host. So now we will set up the classic shell. It is very convenient way to make the users familiar with the start menu, because the start menu of Windows 10 and Windows Server it's not as simple and easy as the Windows 7 start menu options. Okay, it's more easier to deal with. Okay, and also you can control it because the program has give you some group policies. You can import it to your group policy management console and begin working with it or begin configuring or controlling this classic shell setting. Okay, or classic shell options. Here we can see that this is the background that we will implement. This is from the DC Comics, and as for the lock screen, this is another one that we will implement. So I think there is a problem with the location of the background. I need to edit it in the group policy because I think it was referring to a wrong location, so I need to change it. Okay, we will check or we will install the program. So here I'm just changing the location, so the location of the background, because it's in a different location. We will go to the control panel or desktop, and then desktop, and then I think the desktop wallpaper. Control panel and then personalized. I think this is the screensaver. This is the location of the screensaver. Force screensaver. Okay, so we will not change the background. We will tell him, because I have missed the configuration of the screensaver. We have configured what background to appear, what lock screen to appear, but we have missed the screensaver. And there is also a theme. There is a desktop theme also. It's also in the same. We have a certain theme or desktop theme to appear. You finish. I've finished the classic shell. So now we will go and see the location of the desktop theme file, because this we need also to configure in the group policy. So now we have configured, or we are playing with our group policy to facilitate for the user, or to have unified setting on all of our workstations, to have a unified background, a unified screensaver, a unified lock screen, unified password policy, unified administrative account change. Okay, a lot of things. So the group policy, it's a way so we can control and unify all of our Windows setting in our domain. Control and unify. Okay, so this is the file called ss.theme. This is the file that contains the desktop theme, or this will install the theme of DC Comics. Okay, I have download the backgrounds and the theme from the internet. So now I'm just getting the because I didn't get the DC Comics screensaver, so I will copy it and put it in my backgrounds share, so the group policy can find it in the location that I defined in the group policy. So now I think we need to, we'll restart the domain controller and see if all of our group policies will be implemented. We will see the background, it will be implemented, the lock screen, all of the other all of the setting that we have configured, so we need to see it, and also the welcome screen. So now we will restart. Okay, here you can see that our start menu in our domain controller is changed to Windows 7 like, and then we will restart and we'll see the changes that will happen after applying the default domain policy. So here we can see that, here we go, we can see that we are, when we make Control Alt Delete, okay, we can see something like this. Okay, Control Alt Delete. Here we can see that this is the welcome message, Marvel Studios. Okay, we will change it because this is not Marvel Studios, it is DC Comics Studios. Unauthorized access or use of this system is prohibited. This is something to say to the user that this is a work environment and you need to take care because everything is monitored and recorded. Okay, so we need to change this title from Marvel Studios to DC Comics. I will show you all how to do this and how we can rename the local administrator account, okay, to another name and to disable it, because this is the thing, or this is the recommendation of Microsoft when you install any Windows operating system, either server or workstation, Windows 10 or Windows Server 2019. Okay, so we'll see that in a moment. We'll see how this can be changed. This is also be changed, the welcome message, we will change it from the default domain policy. Here I will log in with my user account. Here take care and see if the background will be changed and the theme. So here we can see that the background is implemented. We need just to change the setting because it is stretched, but the resolution of the screen it's not correct. So we'll make it in a resolution that will make this picture appear more clearly and more bright and more visible. And then we'll go to the default domain policy and change the welcome message from Marvel Studios to DC Comics. I will show you all how to do this. Here we can see that this is we will change this to my laptop resolution. It's 1363 by 768 and tell him to keep the setting, and then we'll go to the DC console. Okay, this setting can work in a default domain policy and also in your work group or your normal laptop or workstation, or your normal laptop, for example. It should not or it applies not only to a domain controller or Active Directory environment, but can be done on a local computer or local work group. I will show you all how this can be done. So now so we'll go to the default domain policy and right click and edit, and then we will go to, this is to change the welcome message. We'll go to policies and then to Windows setting, okay, and then to I will show you, and then to security, to security setting. Okay, I will show you all this. Okay, here we can get it. We'll tell run, and then we'll go to GP edit. Okay, we will go to the same, because I didn't record it. This is Windows setting, and then we will go to security, and then local, and then user rights, or I think security options. Yes, security options. Here we can see that accounts administrator account status not applicable. Here you can tell him, in this you can tell him to disable the administrator account, local administrator account. From here we will configure this policy. This will be applied to all your domain controllers and workstations. So this is a very good idea. Okay, and then to rename the account, you can tell him to rename the administrator to another thing. For example, for here you can tell him to rename it from administrator to any other name. So this will disable the account and this will rename the account. Okay, and there is a message, or here we can configure the, let me show you all, where is the message. Okay, here is the title. This is, here we will put here in this called interactive login message title for user attempting to login. Here we will change Marvel. Here this where Marvel Studio is written, we will change it from Marvel Studio to DC Comics Studio, and the one on upper of it, this is the message saying that this is a prohibited system and you need to take care. Okay, and there is a lot of things here. You can, for example, tell him maximum password age. As I said before, default domain policy contains a lot of options. Okay, so if you can hold with me for a minute. So now we have changed the setting of the welcome screen, and now we will restart and see if the setting is changed. So I show you all how to rename the local administrator account and to rename it, to disable it and to rename it. Okay, and here you see it's changed to DC Comics Studio. It's changed from Marvel Studio to DC Comics Studio. So again, what I was saying there, guys, because just to make sure that it is understood, in the Windows setting, okay, and then in the setting, and then in the security, and then in the local policy and the security options, this is where you can disable the local administrator account of the Windows Server or Windows 10, and this is where you can also rename it. Okay, so now we will go and log in. So I think this, now we have created the group policy we have created the users and groups. All of this, we have created users and groups and group members and computers. All of this has been done through using PowerShell scripts, so we have saved a lot of time, and we are inconsistent with the objective that Superman gave to Batman, that he need to be very fast and to complete the whole Active Directory and computer infrastructure in 2 days. We have already half a day now, if we can say that, or less. We have created the Active Directory with all of its group policy. We will continue creating the second domain controller, and we will finish deploying the 53 PCs in maybe less than 1 day. All of this process will take 1 day, so it will be consistent with the objective that we are seeking. Okay, and this is the operation of deploying PCs. Is called zero touch installation. So here we can see that, just a minute, can go there again. So I think now I need to create another virtual machine, okay, and make the second domain controller, which will be a second domain controller and a file server. You tell him a new virtual machine, and will contain also this server. It's not will be a file server and a second domain controller. It will be also Windows deployment server, and we will install Microsoft deployment tool on it. Okay, so will not be a hurry. Here we tell him new virtual machine, and we name it DC02, and we will make it generation 1, and we will tell him RAM to be 4 because we need it to be strong one. This will contain a lot of features installed on it, and use dynamic memory. We have discussed all of this before, and we will put this virtual machine on our internal switch, which is DC internal switch, the same switch on which our first domain controller is connected to, and my laptop also is connected to it. Okay, and we will put 2 network cards. Here we will give it a virtual disk or hard disk, which was 200 giga, and next, and then we will tell him to install operating system later, and then finish, and then we will insert the Windows Server 2019 ISO image, setting, and then first of all we need to insert the, here I give it 2 processors because I said before it will contain a lot of server roles. It will be a file server, a Windows deployment server, second domain controller, so I need to have and also deployment to be a Windows deployment server and have MDT installed on it. It will need a lot of processing power, so I give it 2 virtual processors and 4 gigabyte of RAM, and I will add another network card so we can make also a teaming between them, and the second network card will be attached to the same switch or same internal switch. Here we will add the ISO image. I think first of all I will add the so I think I will shut down the first domain controller because I don't have much RAM and processor available, so I'm just shut it down until I create my second domain controller just to install on the second virtual machine. That will be the second domain controller. I will install Windows and just prepare it, and then when I need it to join the domain and to be the second domain controller, I will power on the first domain controller because I don't have enough RAM and processor to make them work both in the same time, at least for the moment. So where are we now? Okay, here I am taking something called the checkpoint. Here, after finishing your first domain controller, we have done a lot of things. We have installed the domain controller number 1, or the first domain controller. I have done a lot of configuration, a lot of things. We need to back up this virtual machine. Okay, to back it up, we will make something called a checkpoint. This checkpoint, it resembles or is the same as taking an image of a physical machine in your environment. Taking a checkpoint for a virtual machine is the same as taking a backup or creating an image from a physical machine in your production or in the real world scenarios. Okay, so this is also, you need to have to take a checkpoint every now and then for your virtual machines as a backup plan or backup solution. So here we will right click, or we can, from here we can click on the virtual machine and tell him a checkpoint. So now he's creating a checkpoint. This is created on 30/10/2019. So now we rename it for anything else. Okay, I'll leave it as it is. If you want to rename it to another thing, you can rename it. So now I need to add a second network card, because this server or the second domain controller have only one network card, but I think I will add it. I forgot to do this, but when after finishing installing the Windows server, I will put or add the second network card and make teaming between them, the same that we have done in the first domain controller. And here also I think I forgot to put the DVD, but this is simple. You will tell him setting and go to the DVD option or CD and insert the DVD. I didn't record this, but this is simple. We have done it in the first domain controller, so it's very simple. So now this is where the fun begins and the action begins, because this second domain controller, we will have Windows deployment server installed on it, and this and MDT or Microsoft deployment tools, and with the various scripts and tools for the Microsoft deployment tool combined with the Microsoft deployment server, we can see the zero touch installation process. One of my colleagues have done this solution, and he says that he just power on the machine and everything was finished in 40 minutes. Windows was installed, Office was installed, other additional software is installed, the PC was giving a name and joined the domain. Everything is done in 40 minutes. This is with a very powerful server, about 1 tera and 1 tera of RAM and 1 tera of hard disk, a lot of things, but this is done minimum in 40 minutes. So here we can go a little bit further. Here is the Windows Server 2019. Here we will tell him next, and then custom installation. We will make 2 partitions. The first partition will be 100 gigs and will be for the C drive, which will contain our operating system or the Windows, and the other one will contain our data, or the other partition will be, the first partition will be C and will have operating system, and the other will be D and will contain our data. Okay, here, and we will format this partition D because you need to make it accessible. If you needed to make it accessible, you need to format it, and we will format it NTFS, and then we will install our operating system on the first partition, which will be the C drive. So now we will wait until the installation finish. It will take a little bit of time. We can go there. Okay, so now I think I will go and add the second network card. We need to make sure that the second network card that you will add, Okay, setting. Here what I'm doing, I'm going to the first domain controller and I will decrease the RAM because I need more RAM, because actually 4 and 2, then it's 6 gigabyte of RAM and I only have 8, so this will make a lot of bottleneck or RAM bottleneck and performance issues. So I will just decrease the RAM from the server or the first domain controller. I don't need a lot of RAM for this server. I will make it as 1 gigabyte of RAM. Okay, and I will go to the second domain controller and add a second network card. Okay, here we see that I have finished the installation of the operating system, and then this is also the administrator. Okay, we have done this in the default domain policy. We have told him to disable the administrator and rename it. We just here will give him a password, and I'll show you all how this is done. Then we will do what we have done in with the first domain controller. We need to activate the remote access option, and we need to rename it the PC to DC02. Okay, and to have 2 network cards and teaming option between them. All of this is a preparation before we make this server joins the domain and to be the second domain controller by installing Active Directory domain services on it and promoting it to be the second domain controller. We can make it a little bit faster. Okay, so now, as I told you before, I need to add a second network card, and it should be attached to the same switch that the first network card is attached to. Okay, here we'll go to setting, then go to the network card, and then we tell him to add hardware and add a new network adapter and add, and then we will tell him to add it to the to the DC internal switch. By the way, the Hyper-V internal switch is named DC internal switch, DC abbreviation of DC Comex. So now we will go and do what we have done before with the DC domain, or with the first domain controller. We will name it. We will make teaming between the network cards. We will open the remote connection option, and we will do a lot of things, but the same that we have done before with the first domain controller. So we can I think go faster, or it is there. Okay. So now we are preparing, just a minute, I think I need to go a little bit further. What I have done, I think this is not right. I think I have passed something. Just a minute, I think I was, yes, I forgot, or I get back. Okay, here you go, that, okay, I think we were in what? We were in the place, or we were when we have added the second, just to make sure. Here we have added the second card. Okay, and then we'll power it on, and then we have logged in, then we log in, and then we will go and increase, we go first of all to display setting, to just make it the screen wider, and then to have this PC and control panel appears on the desktop. I don't need to do this because the login script will do this. and I will change the name of the server or this workstation, sorry, and this server to be DC02. I think we can go much further, much faster. Here I have changed the display, okay, and then we will go to the themes and make desktop icons, so I have my computer or this PC and control panel and a lot of things to appear. Okay, and then here we go, let's we go, and then we'll go to the server manager. Okay, and then remember I have already renamed it to the DC02. I have done this but I didn't record it, but this is simply you can do it from right click properties and then change setting and then go to the computer name and change it. So we have changed the name. We need to open the remote. Here we'll go to the local server and open the remote connection. This option is needed because if you need to access the server from a remote location, if this option is not enabled, you will not be able to do this. Okay, so you need to open it. Okay, make it remote desktop to be enabled, and to enable the option to allow only authenticated users to access this PC. And we will define what type of authenticated users. We have a group called remote users. This is the only authenticated users in this group that will be able to, or this authenticated user should be a member of the remote users, so they can be able to access the server from outside. Here we get to the network teaming, and then we will choose both network cards. As I said before, there is a difference between teaming in Hyper-V and VM Workstation Pro. Here the speed is 10 GB for every network card, but in the VMware they give it a speed of 1 GB. Okay, so here we will right click and add a new team, and then we will name it, and then we will give this server an IP address of 10.0.1.21. okay, this will be the IP of the second domain controller. Okay, and also we will put the IP of our first domain controller, so this workstation or this server can be able to join the domain. We will see that in a moment. It will take a little bit of time until it says active and active. It will give you a fault in the beginning, but if you wait for a couple of minutes it will be active and active, so it will be working. When making a network team between two cards, they are treated as one network card, and they are given one connection. Okay, when you have two network cards, everyone will have a separate network connection, but when two cards are in the teaming option, or they are teamed, they are given one network connection, not two. Okay, so here we will go to the control panel, and then we will begin giving the server an IP address. Control panel, I think we'll make it more faster. Control panel, and then we'll go, okay, we'll go to we can get a little bit quicker here. Here what I've did, I have just, we can go a little bit earlier. Go to network sharing, and then I will open the network sharing, then open the network connection. Okay, just wait for a moment. And then I will power on the first domain controller, so I can be able to join the domain, or to make this server to be a second domain controller by joining the domain through the first domain controller. So yeah, I am powering it on. Okay, start. And then I can go and add the IP setting for the server. Okay, here I can go and add properties. Okay, and then go to Internet Protocol TCP4 and then properties, and then use the following IP address, and then I will add 10.0.1.21 and then the subnet mask to be 255.255.255.0, and for the preferred DNS to be 10.0.1.20, which is the IP of the first domain controller, and in the same time it is the DNS. And we will add the WINS, which is also my first domain controller. It acts as a DNS and as a WINS. Here we go to the WINS and tell him enable NetBIOS over TCP IP, and then we will add the IP of our first domain controller, which is 10.0.1.20. It's acting as as DNS and as WINS. So now we have added the IP setting for the server. That will be the second domain controller and the IP of our first domain controller. So this server or virtual machine can be able to join the domain and to be promoted to the second domain controller. Okay, so now we have done this. So now in the upcoming video we will see how we will promote it to be a second domain controller, and how we will install or configure file server role and Windows deployment server and Microsoft deployment tool, and how we will configure the shared department shares on it, and how to make file server quota on it. A lot of things will be done, so don't worry, we'll do it step by step. Here I am going to the command prompt, right click and run cmd. Why I'm doing this? I will just test the connection between my first domain controller and second domain controller by pinging my first domain controller from here, because if I can't ping my first domain controller from my second domain controller, I will not be able to join the domain or to do anything. So my first domain controller is replying with his IP address. So now everything is ready. The second domain controller name is done, the options are configured, the IP is set. So we need to install Active Directory domain services and promote this server to be the second domain controller. So this will be done in the upcoming video. Hope this video was informative for you all, and I would like to thank you all for viewing. Okay, thank you so much. So now finished.